So in discussing, this global phenomenon, and when we talk about rights that have been taken away from people on paper, the FISA Act is nothing more than COINTELPRO.
Hmm.
So the rights that white people are losing now, black people never had in this country. And the methods that they use to target black leaders is what they would call counterterrorism today.
Hmm.
So this picture that I'm showing you here is a picture of a group in Kenya that's called the RRT, or the Rapid Response Team. And this is a group that is backed by the CIA and MI6. So MI6 is the intelligence agency in the UK. And what they do is the CIA gives money to Kenya, and they train these, what they call, police officers, to go out and pretty much fulfill bounties on people that they believe to be terrorists. So back in 2012, they actually murdered an individual by the name of Omar Faraj, who was in his home with his wife, and they actually raided his home as plainclothes officers. Well, we heard this before many times. We hear the same type of situations that happen right here in this country with local police right here.
Hmm.
So they raided his home and they killed him uh, while his wife was there. And when they shot him in the head, he fell on top of his wife, and his wife had to play like she was dead so that they wouldn't kill her.
Hmm.
And because she survived, she was able to be a witness in a lawsuit that went before the Kenya High Court, a lawsuit that she eventually won, or his family won, where they only awarded them $50,000. Yeah, they'll say 6.5 million Kenyan shillings, but shillings to dollars and to pounds is about 40,000 pounds to about 49,800 something US dollars. So the thing about the situation is they identified Faraj, or they misidentified Faraj for the actual target that they of the person that they were looking for. So they went into the wrong home, killed an innocent man who was 39 years old. This happened in Mombasa. They killed an innocent man in hopes to find the person that they were actually looking for, who they believed to be a terrorist. So again, we see what we talked about in this whole war on terror. Here you can see in this article here, the CIA and MI6 secret war in Kenya. So it says clandestine Kenyan team has been paid and assisted by the CIA to take down terror suspects since 2004. Now, this is a quote coming from a U.S. official. It says that we're really hands on. I'll scroll down so you can see here. We're really hands on. We don't just hand them the money once a month, one U.S. official said. Unconstitutional killings include a family man wrongly slain due to mistaken identity. That was Faraj, who we just talked about. Goes on to say that Britain's MI6 plays a key role in identifying suspects for a kill or capture list and finding and fixing their location. Once again, with the electronics that we're using, the cell phones. If people remember, recently, back in December, it didn't pass, but Kenya was actually going to implement digital IDs. So, what were those digital IDs going to be used for?
Hmm.
To be able to track people like this through the CIA, other intelligence agencies. So when you talk about neocolonialism, the same tools and tactics are being spread to other countries. We're not governing ourselves as African nations. We're simply implementing European methods of government. He said, we're really hands on. We don't just hand them the money once a month.
Mm.
Goes on to say that parliaments use covert tactics such as fake number plates and disguise themselves as aid workers on operations in refugee camps, which shield perpetrators of abuses from any shred of accountability. Killings are radicalized in Kenya, a former U.S. ambassador and Kenyan vice president both told Declassified. So this is something that has been going on since 2004 in what they're calling a covert war.
Mm-hmm.
The Rapid Response Team, a clandestine special team of Kenyan Parliamentary General Service Units, Reese Company. The RRT team was set up, equipped, trained, and is guided on tactical counterterror operations by America's CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. A decent classified investigation can reveal. The secretive Kenyan team is informally known as Rendition's Operation Team and is composed of around 60 police commandos. So we have these blackface, westernized CIA operatives that are functioning in Kenya. And this is something that was just exposed due to the extrajudicial killings of innocent people.
Mm.
Uh, so that killing happened in 2012, but as we stated, this has been going on since 2004.
Mm.
So who knows how many other African countries are accepting orders and money from the CIA and MI6 and maybe even Mossad to operate these bounties on targets that they feel are terrorists. In many cases, they would have considered, in all cases, I should say, they would have considered Dinan Kamate to be a terrorist.
No doubt.
So they create this idea of war on terror to spook people into being afraid of people who may be Islamic or Muslim, and then they focus on these groups like Al Shabaab, Boko Haram. In many cases, groups that they create.
Or at least create the conditions
Yeah,
that make these groups come forth.
and what it does is it puts people who are serious in a position who are opposed to what the government is doing, who are opposed to what, like we talked about, these rights being taken away from the people. So if somebody does have a disagreement with the government and move in a direction that they don't agree with, they have the legal authority to just assassinate you without any due process.
Yeah, just label you a terrorist or enemy of the state. Exactly. You know what this grew out of the bombings that took place in Kenya and Tanzania on August the 7th, 1998. Gullah Jack started a local cable access program called the Blacklist, and this is one of the first things we discussed. This was in 1998, and said nearly simultaneous bombs blew up in front of the American embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. 224 people died in the blast, including 12 Americans, and more than 4,500 people were wounded. In the aftermath of the attacks, over 900 FBI agents alone, that's just FBI, not CIA and everyone else, DIA and whoever else was involved, and many more FBI employees traveled overseas to assist in the recovery of evidence and the identification of the victims at the bomb sites. These attacks were soon directly linked to Al Qaeda. Now, so, you know, This is the problem I have with indiscriminate violence. So the Al Qaeda organization is accused of this. Al Qaeda, of course, being led at the time by Osama bin Laden. They have issues with the United States, and so they plant a bomb. They plant bombs in Kenya and Tanzania. They wind up killing 12 Americans, and then they killed 212 Africans. And the overwhelming majority of the 4,500 people wounded were also people who just happened to be working near the embassy, on the street, or whatever. They don't care. They absolutely do not care as to who they attack when they launch these indiscriminate terrorist activities. But those activities gave the United States an opportunity, and the United Kingdom an opportunity to move in and establish, this organization, which apparently just operates sort of like they can operate here with the FISA Act. I mean, they say so and so is a terrorist. Let's go take him out, except, like they're actually, they're taking people out. They aren't necessarily putting them in jail. They're considered terrorists, and they go in. And so you said they broke into the wrong home. How many times have we heard that? Breonna Taylor, and how many other times have we heard, situations like that? And apparently they are totally above the law. And because the government of Kenya, don't know necessarily who the president was when they started in 2004. Was it Moi? I can't remember who the president might have been, but it started and it continued all the way up through 12, and I think this was probably before Uhuru Kenyatta got elected. But has it even been disbanded now? Is it still operating? Okay, probably not, because when the United States decided that they wanted to overthrow the Islamic Courts Union, which had brought a degree of stability to the area around Mogadishu, Somalia. Okay, Somalia has been an absolute mess. Many people have seen the movie Black Hawk Down. It's just been total chaos, a destabilized country. And this organization called the Union of Islamic Courts, or the Islamic Courts Union, had brought a degree of stability to a part of Somalia. And in 2006, the United States decided to launch a military campaign against this organization. It was, taking place under the Bush administration, with heavy involvement by Dr. Condoleezza Rice, who was Secretary of State at the time. So the Islamic courts were considered to be a moderate Islamic organization, but they were part of. It was sort of like a united front of groups in it, and the Al-Shabaab organization, which was more of a radical extremist Islamist organization, was part of it. They decided to break away and start their own, first of all, to fight against the United States. The United States had hired Ethiopia to help carry out the fight. And then they were able to get, through the United Nations, this peacekeeping force to come into Somalia to try to squash this rebellion that had been started by the Al-Shabaab organization after the moderate Islamic courts were overthrown. Al-Shabaab, in the process of carrying out terrorist attacks in Somalia, also expanded. And some people may remember there have been at least 2 attacks on shopping malls in Kenya that were carried out by the Al-Shabaab organization. And so here, once again, you have a situation where the United States, the people in Somalia, are not allowed to build their own, political and economic government. The United States decides that no, you can't. These guys can't run your government. We got to have someone else. So they start a war to replace the people who were running their own country and replace them with some people that were, in fact, more brutal. Okay, and I mean they didn't replace them, but what they did was they created the conditions that allowed the more radical Islamists to gain a foothold, declare allegiance to Al Qaeda, and then start carrying out terrorist campaigns against what was left of the Somalian government, and whoever. There was an attack against, for example, just last year against a United States outpost in the part of Kenya that borders Somalia. So they create the conditions that cause people to rise up and become more radical, or they in fact create the radicals themselves because they want to overthrow people like Assad in Syria or Gaddafi in Libya. They use these people. This is what the guy from the Gray Zone was writing about, how they create these organizations, and then the result of it is that innocent people suffer repression or they're killed.
Right.
So this
they create
is
you
what we're
create an
dealing with.
organization like this, and then it gives you now the ability to move your military into a country, or to use your central intelligence agency to be able to operate on someone else's sovereign territory, essentially strengthening your military reach by causing these conditions or creating these terrorist groups. I remember when Lindsey Graham said a long time ago, the war is moving to Africa.
Yeah, we discussed that.
That wasn't a prediction.
We
That was him
discussed that.
telling you what the plans were.
That was after an attack on a U.S. outpost in Niger. I think it was 2 years ago, or it might have been 3 years ago when we discussed that. We did it. We did in fact. I mean, they create the conditions that, or sometimes, like in the case of Libya, they actually bring the terrorists in to help them overthrow the person that they want removed. And then when things don't work out exactly like they want to, now you've brought all of these terrorists into Africa, and what do? They start spreading. And so you have Africans who are dying now in the Sahel in 2024 because of the United States war of aggression on Libya in 2011. Africans are dying today because the government of Libya was overthrown, and because they brought all of these terrorists in because they needed to use them to overthrow and kill Gaddafi. They tracked Gaddafi using they were using satellite phones. That's how they found out. They found out he was fleeing Sirte, his home, trying to escape in a convoy. They made a call. They found out exactly where he was, and they sent some drones and some F-16s and attacked his convoy. And eventually he was killed, not from that attack, but once he was captured by the terrorists, they killed him. So, and now Africans are dying today. Africans are dying today in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, all dying today because of those activities. And so, but basically the point that you're making is that they create this instability, and then they go to these countries and say, let us come in and help you solve the problem that they created. And African leaders generally just roll over and go for it. But now we're seeing at least some pushback from the Sahel Alliance. And maybe Chad, if Chad is serious, maybe. We'll see.
And brothers and sisters, leave your comments down in the comment section. Definitely subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're watching the channel, subscribe so that we can continue to get more viewers Give this video a thumbs up. Until next time, I'll be before Hodier.
Be before Hodier.